Hello and welcome to Storytime with Mr. Laws. Today we're reading Wayside School Gets a Little Stranger by Lewis Sacker. Chapter 29, Stupid. Did anyone have any trouble with the homework? Asked Miss Snowguard. They all shook their heads. Ron shook his head too. Homework? He thought. What homework? Good, said Miss Snowguard. Well, in that case, there won't be any homework tonight. Everyone cheered. Let's just quickly go over the answers, she said. Ron, what was your answer to question 1? Ron's stomach flipped over. He fumbled with his notebook. Just a second, he said. Oh, that's okay. We'll wait, said Miss Snowguard. Ron flipped through the pages. What question are we on? He asked. Question 1, said Miss Snowguard. I couldn't get that one, said Ron. Oh, said Miss Snowguard. Well, that's okay, Ron, as long as you tried. Who knows the answer to question 1? A handful of hands went up in the air. 7 lima beans, thought Jason. 7 lima beans, thought Rondi. 6 cucumbers, thought Dee Dee. 7 lima beans, thought Stephen. Miss Snowguard picked on Dee Dee. 6 cucumbers, Dee Dee said proudly. Oh, no, I'm sorry, said Miss Snowguard. The answer was 7 lima beans. Oh, I had that, thought Jason. She should have called on me, thought Rondi. Dee Dee's stupid, thought Stephen. OK, question 2, said Miss Snowguard. Ron, did you get that one? Ron squirmed in his seat. He flipped through his papers. What question are we on? He asked. Question 2, said Miss Snowguard. I couldn't get that one either, said Ron. Miss Snowguard looked at him a moment. OK, well, who knows the answer to question 2? Abraham Lincoln's hat, thought Todd. Abraham Lincoln's hat, thought Joy. Abraham Lincoln's hat, thought Bebe. George Washington's left shoe, thought Calvin. Yes, Calvin, said Miss Snowguard. George Washington's left shoe, said Calvin. No, I'm sorry, said Miss Snowguard. The answer was Abraham Lincoln's hat. I knew it, thought Todd. Calvin is stupid, thought Joy. Ron, did you get the answer to number 3? Asked Miss Snowguard. Ron shook his sorry little head. He wished he had just told her the truth, but now it was too late. Anyone? Asked Miss Snowguard. Chairs and bears, thought Benjamin. Coats and goats, thought DJ. Chairs and bears, thought Mac. Chairs and bears, thought Dee Dee. Miss Snowguard picked DJ. Coats and goats? He said hopefully. No, chairs and bears, said Miss Snowguard. What an idiot, thought Benjamin. Question 4, said Miss Snowguard. Ron? And so it went on. Miss Snowguard went through the entire homework assignment and nobody gave a correct answer. Well, I'm very disappointed, she said when they were finished. You obviously didn't understand it, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to set homework tonight after all. Everyone groaned. I don't like it any better than you do, said Miss Snowguard, but it's for your own good. She set 3 pages of homework, plus they had to do yesterday's homework all over again as well. But nobody blamed Miss Snowguard. They liked her. She didn't even want to give homework. They blamed each other. It's not fair, thought Benjamin. I only missed 1 question, but I have to do extra homework because everyone else is so stupid. It was the same all around the room. Nobody had got more than 2 wrong. Everyone thought everyone else was stupid. Miss Snowguard smiled as she listened to their thoughts. I hate Joe, thought John. I hate Calvin, thought Bebe. I hate Joy, thought Maricia. I hate Alison, thought Rondi. And everyone hated Ron. Chapter 30. The Little Stranger. Wayside School was no fun anymore. "Hey, out of my way, Buster," said Dee Dee as she pushed past Ron on her way to her seat. "Hey, keep your hairy paws to yourself," said Ron. Nobody had any friends. Everybody hated everybody, except Miss Nogard. They all liked her. But then a miracle happened. A new kid came to school. The new kid couldn't talk. She had no teeth. She was almost bald. And she was beautiful. Her name was Mavis Jules, and she was only 4 days old. She really was a new kid. Mrs. Jules carried her into the classroom, and when the baby came through the door, all the hate flew out the window. Lewis came in behind them, carrying a cot, a nappy bag, an assortment of toys, and a baby bottle. "It's Mrs. Jules and her baby!" Todd exclaimed. Lewis put the cot on Todd's desk. Mrs. Jules gently laid her baby down on it, in soft yellow blankets. Everyone crowded around the little stranger. "Look at her totally tiny toes," Bibi squealed. "Aren't those the cutest things you've ever seen in your whole life?" "Oh, check out her nose," said Myron. "Oh, she's so beautiful, Mrs. Jules," said Joy. "Can I touch her?" "Sure," said Mrs. Jules. They took turns touching the baby. "Goo, goo, goo, goo," said Mac, as he gently shook Mavis's little hand. "Iggle, wiggle, poo-poo," said Alison, tapping her on the nose. "Iggle, wiggle, poo-poo-poo," said Rondi, tickling her foot. "Yibble, bibble," said Todd. "Oogle, boo-boo," cooed Joe. "She's never going to learn to talk around you kids," said Mrs. Jules with a laugh. Dana was so happy she cried. She hugged Mrs. Jules. They all took turns hugging Mrs. Jules. Of course, there was one person who wasn't happy. "May I hold her, Mrs. Jules?" Miss Nogard asked sweetly. Mrs. Jules looked at the supply teacher. "Oh, it's okay," said Alison. "Miss Nogard's a really nice teacher." "Oh, sure, go ahead," said Mrs. Jules. "I'm sorry for interrupting your class like this." "Oh, that's quite all right," said Miss Nogard, picking up Mrs. Jules's baby. "She's just adorable." The window by Cherie's desk was wide open. "Oh, that's kind of dangerous," Miss Nogard thought. "Somebody might accidentally drop something out the window." She slowly moved towards it as she swayed with the baby. "I've heard so much about you, Mrs. Jules," she said. "The children have missed you." "Oh, I've missed them too," said Mrs. Jules. There was a rubber band ball on the floor next to Cherie's desk. Cherie had been making it, although it wasn't nearly as big as the one Mr. Kidswatter had been making. "If I tripped over that rubber band ball, something awful might happen," thought Miss Nogard. She was just about to step on it, when suddenly she became very curious about the kind of thoughts babies had. She had never listened to a baby's brain before. Miss Nogard held Mavis close to her heart and listened. She gasped. Her face turned white and her legs wobbled beneath her. As she tried to get her balance, she stepped on the rubber band ball and fell towards the open window. Lewis jumped over Cherie's desk and grabbed her just in time. Mrs. Jules hurried over. Miss Nogard tenderly handed Mrs. Jules her baby. Then she fainted in Lewis's arms. It is impossible to describe in words exactly what Miss Nogard heard when she listened to Mavis's brain. Babies don't think in words. Miss Nogard heard pure love and trust and faith, with no words to get in the way. It was a love so strong that it dissolved away all the bitterness that had been caked around her heart. She opened her eyes. "Are you all right, Miss Nogard?" asked Stephen. All the children were very worried about her. Miss Nogard smiled at Lewis, who was still holding her. "I'm fine," she said, then took a couple of steps to steady herself. "In fact, I think I'm better than I've been in a long time." She laughed, then hugged Stephen. "You should feel very proud of your class," she told Mrs. Jules. "They are bright, well-behaved, and such a pleasure to teach." "We are?" asked Mauricia. Miss Nogard fluffed Mauricia's hair. "Yes, you are," she said. Mauricia smiled up at her. "I know," said Mrs. Jules. "As I told my obstetrician—" "Your what?" asked Joy. "Obstetrician," said Mrs. Jules. "That's the doctor who helped me have my baby. Then once a baby is born, she gets a new doctor. That doctor's called a paediatrician. That's different from a podiatrist, who's a doctor who takes care of people's feet. There are many different types of doctors. There's also a—" Todd raised his hand. Mrs. Jules, you're starting to get a bit boring," he said. Mrs. Jules made Todd write his name on the blackboard under the word discipline. "Hey, Lewis!" shouted Mac. "Ask Miss Nogard out on a date!" Everyone looked at Lewis. Miss Nogard looked at him too. "Do it, Lewis," said Leslie. "I really would like to get to know you better, Miss Nogard," said Lewis. "Ooh!" said Paul and Leslie. "Way to go, Lewis!" cheered DJ. "Call me Wendy," said Wendy Nogard. "Ooh!" said Bibi and Calvin. "Okay, Wendy," said Lewis, "and you can call me Lewis." "I already do," said Wendy. She smiled at him. He smiled back. "So, what do you say?" he asked. "Would you like to go out sometime?" Miss Nogard hesitated. "Say yes, Miss Nogard," urged Jenny. Miss Nogard took a deep breath. "I like you, Lewis," she said, "but I think there's something you should know about me first." She bent over and parted the hair on top of her head. Everyone crowded around as they tried to get a good look. "It's an ear!" shouted Jason. "Yes, it is an ear," said Miss Nogard. "Cool," said Terence. "Can I touch it?" asked Dana. Everyone took turns touching her ear. The one on top of her head, I mean. "So, Lewis, are you sure you still want to go out with me?" she asked. Lewis held her hands in his. "I like you a lot," he said. "It doesn't matter how many ears you have." He paused for a second. "How many ears do you have?" "Just 3, she assured him. "I think your ears are beautiful," said Lewis. "I think your nose and eyebrows are beautiful." And Miss Nogard didn't have to read Lewis's mind to know he was telling the truth. She could see it in his eyes. His eyes were like the moon. She kissed him. His moustache tickled. Everybody oohed. And that's the end. I hope you enjoyed it.